All right, flirties, it's our final bonus episode for Pride Month, and we're getting into drag, y'all. That's right. On the show today, we have two drag artists, Naomi Dix and Onya Nerves, and I can't wait for you to meet them. We'll hear about how they got into drag, and then the conversation opens up into some truly mic drop moments about what it means to live in your truth and allow yourself to be seen, what the present moment truly looks like and feels like, how to find your community no matter where you are, and what it truly means to be not just a drag queen or performer, but a drag artist. Are y'all ready? I know I am. Let's do this. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm the flirt coach and a gay Libra. Everyone has an inner flirt.
Hey, flirty.
Live, laugh, flirt.
Work the flirt.
Work the flirt. Delulu is the Salulu. Expert on the flirt.
Hey, flirty. There's always another flirt.
Everyone has an inner flirt. Get out of your head and into the flirt. All right, flirties, we've got another bonus episode of Flirtations for you today in honor and celebration of Pride Month. We're not done just yet. Pride Month ain't over. We got a few more days. And on the show with us, we have Naomi Dix. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. All right. So tell the flirties a little bit more about you. You are a drag performer, among other things. Yes, would love to learn more about you, your story, and how you got into drag.
I mean, I'm going to have to learn about this mustache later on, but
Leopold?
I guess I will talk about myself. You know, that's what we do best apparently as drag artists, you know? Yeah. So, again, thank you for having me.
Yes.
I have been doing drag for a little over 10 years as of last month. So more like a year and 1 month. But yeah, I started off in 2014. I was still in college in 2014 and lived in Raleigh, North Carolina at the time. And I was going to a lot of, obviously a lot of, gay clubs and bars and going to drag shows and, always had fun at drag shows with my friends. And we were always pre-gaming and going to, like Legends and going to Flex and all of those things and always having a really good time. So it was a part of my journey that a lot of us have in our early 20s of, what queerness meant to us at the time and trying to understand that. And so, I don't know, I just went to some drag shows and I remember there was one particular drag show that I went to in the Triangle and I was looking around and I was just like, I'm really seeing a lot of brown girls who are performing. I'm seeing a lot of white girls performing, but I'm not seeing a lot of brown girls performing. And in the audience, I wasn't seeing a lot of brown people. And in the club, I wasn't also seeing a lot of POC people as well. And so I just felt this, I started feeling this like a lack of representation of myself and what I looked like and what my friends looked like. And so I remember asking a friend who wasn't in the same university as me, but was in another university in Durham, Duke. And my friend Cesar, he said, I think we should go to Durham to see drag. And I was like, there is not drag in Durham. And he was like, oh no, there's plenty of drag in Durham. There's a house called the House of Cox, and it is ran by Vivica C. Cox. And I think we should go. And I was like, okay. So we went the next weekend. And I remember when we walked into the Pinhook, I was so bougie and Raleigh at the time. And I was like, ew, like, what is this? Like, oh my God, it's so dingy.
The floors are a little sticky. I've been there.
Exactly. And I was like, I can't believe we're in here. Why would you bring me here? But I remember I went in, but I immediately also felt this sense of like community when I walked into Pinhook. And I remember the show started and Vivica, this big, beautiful, vivacious, gorgeous, redheaded woman came out on stage and she said, if you don't understand what enthusiastic consent means, if you don't understand what POC means, and if you don't understand that I am an educated POC Black woman living in North Carolina in the South, and I am the director and host of this show, then you can get the F out of my club. Ooh. And in that moment, I was like, here is this beautiful, strong woman of color, educated, and she talked to a whole group of white people, but also not white people. There were brown people, Asian people, Latino people, indigenous people standing in the audience. But she said it with such confidence. Yeah. And I was like, that is amazing. And I turned to my friend and I was like, oh, I have found my place.
Yes.
And at that moment, I have found my place. And we kept going back as often as possible to every show that they held, which was, I think at the time, like every other month. And we walked out of maybe like the third show that we had been to. And my friends said to me, you should try drag. Okay. And I said, yeah, no. I'm not walking in heels. Like, I am not walking in heels. I might walk in heels, for the right man. Right. But like, I don't know if I want to walk in heels as a performer. Like, I don't know how to do that. And my friend Cesar was like, oh, no, you have to do it. Like, I'm going to get you connected with a friend. His name is Joe. And we're going to come back to Joe later on. But Joe and I think you should get connected. And so I got connected with Joe, and Joe got me connected with Vivica. Yeah. And Vivica was like, there's a amateur show that's happening next month in May. And I think that you should start, maybe thinking about what you want to perform and sing me the song and maybe teach yourself how to get a makeup. Now, mind you, we didn't have YouTube.
Right. There was
tutorials back then to teach you how to get into drag makeup. Right. And so I was just going based off of literally like a picture of Beyonce. And I was like, maybe I'll do it like this. And anyways, I did it. And Vivica introduced me on stage, and I went on the stage and I performed in 8.5-inch heels.
Oh my God.
She was in her early 20s. So she was like, I can do this. And I didn't trip once, thank God. But, I remember I performed Beyonce's, what did I perform? Something off of the Beyonce self-titled album. I can't remember. Partition. I performed Partition.
So, I was curious what your song selection was. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And I won that competition. I remember the crowd was sold out because they were like down the street with a line to get in. But I just remember feeling in that moment like a sense, though this sounds corny, a sense of freedom, a sense of being seen and heard. And once I was on that stage, there was kind of like no turning back.
Yeah.
Because everyone was seeing me, perform. Yes. And so I just remember in that moment, I was just in my head, not in a bad way, but I was just in my head of like, I was in my own world at that moment. And
I know.
I fell in love with it. And, here we are, 10 years later, booked and busy and,
blessed and highly favored.
Exactly. So that's how I got into drag. And
I think a lot of the flirties listening and certainly the queer flirties, no matter where you are in your journey and perhaps figuring out for yourself how you identify with your own process of personal acceptance, I think this is going to be so powerful and impactful. And I have a couple follow-up questions. Because I first met you at the Pinhook. I mean, that was the first time I saw you perform. And I was there with a Joe. Are we talking about the same Joe? I don't know.
I don't know. Joe Smith?
No, different Joe.
Okay.
Mine's Joe G that I work with.
Got you. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Shout out to Joe G. Yeah. I came to a Club Era event at the Pinhook, and I had a similar feeling where you walk in there and it is just it's not a super big venue, but it's just so full of life and so full of diversity, and people are so kind and friendly and welcoming, and the music is great. And so I want to hear a little bit more from your perspective about that first time in the Pinhook where maybe you were feeling a sense of community, a sense of belonging, just a sense of representation for the first time. It's such a powerful feeling. So I want to spend a little bit more time with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, we're as queer people, as gay people, as trans people,
Mm-hmm.
we all have this common understanding and this common ground of, we have been told that we are different and we
Yeah.
are not necessarily normal.
Yeah.
Which, we have come to learn that that is beyond, the case, and just like
Mm-hmm.
not true at all. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to being a queer person of color, it's such a different world. It's such a different feeling. It's such a different way of life that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
Because, society is already against people of color, but
Mm-hmm.
tack onto that being a person of color who also identifies as queer or gay or
Yep.
trans, and then put on
Yep.
top of that a queer person of color who also happens to be a drag artist at the same time. You kind of
Mm-hmm.
have all of these different things that you're faced with that people don't really understand. And so being
Mm-hmm.
a young queer person, um, and trying to navigate my queerness and trying to navigate the world and how
Mm-hmm.
the world viewed me, just as a, POC who identified as a male and who presented themselves as a male. The world was already against me in so many different ways. And
Yeah.
going into a space where the color of your skin didn't matter, but
Mm.
not even that the color of your skin didn't matter, but the person that was representing that space, which at the time was Vivica C. Cox,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing someone that looked like you, and seeing someone that spoke like you, and
Yeah.
seeing someone who really understood what it meant to be a person of color within the entertainment industry,
Mm-hmm.
and understood that it was more than just being pretty, that it was a brand, that it was a business,
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that we held the responsibility as POC drag queens, to really set the standard as to
Yeah.
payment when it came to drag artists,
Yeah.
when it came to what venues we performed in, when it came to people taking us seriously as artists, not just as drag queens, but as artists.
Mm-hmm.
She was the only person that I knew that understood that and taught myself and taught my sister Stormy Day and taught all of these other drag queens and kings now,
Mm-hmm.
in the Durham area, just exactly how to present yourself and how to respect yourself as an artist and how
Mm.
to not be bogged down or overloaded by people telling you that you weren't enough or that you weren't an
Yeah.
artist or that you didn't deserve to be, paid fairly.
Yeah.
So I think just being in a space where I learned that I could use what I was good at for good,
Mm.
and what I was good at was drag,
Mm-hmm.
and I could use that for good by using my platform in many different ways other than just performing, but also being a vessel to so many different people and being a voice for so many different people that didn't have one.
Yeah.
And being the face of my own brand,
Mm.
was super interesting to me and was so helpful to me to find that I too could take up space as a POC and that I had the right
Yes.
to take up that space.
Yes.
And so just being around that, I think, is so important for young people to be around so much diversity and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
having a space that they can explore and be able to have the right to go on their own journeys is so important to the youth,
Mm.
because if they don't have that and they're kept to just one frame of mind, um, that's why we have so many youth that are killing themselves, because they don't have the
Yeah.
opportunity and don't have the access
Yeah.
to be able to kind of spread their wings and do what they want to. So I'm very thankful that even though it was later in life for me, I guess you could say, I was I was very excited and I'm very grateful now to
Yeah.
just be able to have that space.
That is so beautiful. And I thank you so much for sharing that. And because we all of our stories and experiences of queerness and coming into our to ourselves and our own identities are different. And so me, white guy, like very much it's not the same. And so I think having your perspective is going to be so incredibly valuable. And I want to spend some more time now um, going back to your first drag performance and spending a little bit more time with, I can so relate to that experience of being in your head, but not in your head overthinking, overanalyzing, but in your head, just feeling an element of freedom. It's like the energy is flowing through you. This is coming
Yeah.
naturally. This is
Yeah.
like, there's a part of me that was born that was meant to do this. And finding that for the first time is so incredibly validating and affirming. And so, but there's also this duality to the experience where you were doing that in such a public space where you had hundreds of eyes on you. And so I want to hear more about that experience of being seen, but also what it was like for you just being in this full flow of freedom.
Yeah, I think it was just I think I fed off of the energy of the audience.
Mm,
I think that was really important for me. I always knew, like, growing up, like, I always was like performing in my room and like performing for friends and getting like
yeah.
little, like, let's have a amateur singing competition in my
Yes.
bedroom, friends. And they're like,
Uh-huh.
okay, with the friends in the neighborhood. And I would have them over to my house and we would go in my bedroom and I would, create like a stage and like fake microphones and all of this other
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to perform, and I was always, whether it was consciously or subconsciously, knew that there was something out there for me.
Yeah.
I always went through life in a very like, I never really thought about turning a certain age. I never really thought about getting older. I never really thought about what I was doing tomorrow. I always, as a child, like lived in the moment,
Mm,
and never really thought about college and never really thought about, education. I was just like, oh, well, I'm supposed to go to school, so I'll go to
yeah.
school,
Yeah.
but I always just lived in that moment. And I think that, the older I got, I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't live in the moment. Maybe I should have plans for my life, but like, I still lived in the moment. And I think that it helped in a lot of different ways when it came to drag,
Mm-hmm.
because it is all about living in the moment. And when I
Yeah.
went on stage, I was forced to live in that moment the first time that I went on stage, because
Yeah.
everything I had practiced and everything that I had thought about, of I'm going to do this move and I'm going to do that move and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, it just went out the door.
Yeah.
And I was so in that moment that whatever came to me, I did it. And
Mm,
I think that that really resonated with people for
yeah.
some reason. And I
Yeah.
think that people can feel whatever energy you are presenting on stage, they can feel
Yep.
that in the audience. And I always presented myself as, again, in a subconscious way, always presented myself and like, I'm just going to get out here and do it, and whatever happens happens.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think it helped me in a lot of ways to not think too highly of myself and not think too highly of my performances,
Mm-hmm.
but like, it really allowed me to kind of have fun with performances.
Yeah.
And when I performed something, it was very, I think it was satisfying to me, but I think the audience could feel it
Yeah.
and feel that I was having fun. And so the audience was always having fun with me.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I felt the first time that I performed. And I think that I kept that feeling for many, many years.
Yeah.
So it was nice to feel that way.
Absolutely. I can totally understand and feel what you're saying. And I'm gonna draw some parallels between those experiences and the flirt. In many ways, what you're describing is the present moment. If you wanted a story to indicate what the present moment looks and feels like, Naomi Dix just gave it to us
Yeah.
right here on Flirtations. That is what it looks like. It is about feeling yourself, your true authentic self, who you are, and embracing who you are without necessarily attaching your worth, your story, your experiences to how that is going to be perceived, but being in your full truth, living your potential in that moment, not what you did yesterday, not what you may do next week, in the moment, getting out of your head into your heart and feeling it, expressing yourself. That is the present moment. And that's how I want y'all to flirt as well. So you're not thinking your way through it, over analyzing, you're judging yourself, criticizing yourself through it, but looking to make that authentic expression of interest for the sole purpose of making a connection. That's the flirt. Okay, I haven't asked you this question. How did you get your name, the origination of Naomi Dix?
I mean, my name more recently since like 2022, dealing, with the whole Moore County situation, with the lights going out and my show being targeted, that, I never really thought about my name too much before that. And then I had all of these very extreme right-wing conservatives saying, her name is Dix, and oh my God, how disgusting is that? And she's producing and directing this show at a theater where children see her name on the lights and in the front of this theater. That's disgusting. I had never really thought about my name because my friend Joe, who is actually now my bar manager at Era, because I've known him for 15 years, he came up with my name. So I went into the coffee shop that Joe used to work in, and I was like, now that I'm starting drag, like I have to have a drag name. And he was like, okay. He was like, well, they always say it's the, your first pet and the name of your childhood street. And I was just like, okay, no, like, no.
Yeah.
I was like, my pet name was Jack, from Jack, from Titanic. So like, no, we're not going to do that. And the name that I lived on Lassiter. So like Jack Lassiter, that sounds boring, like a white dude. Like
really, really does.
I was like, Jack Lassiter, maybe a porn star, but like, but I was just like, no. And he was like, okay, well, who do you like? Like, who do you like when it comes to like celebrities or models or comedians or singers? And I was like, well, I've always been obsessed with Naomi Campbell. I was like, I think she's so amazing. And I remember seeing her face in magazines growing up and just thinking to myself, she's the most absolutely beautiful Black woman that I've ever seen in my entire life. And he said, well, what if we named you Naomi? And I was like, okay, I like that. And he's like, yeah. He was like, and then what if we just named you Naomi Cox? And I was like, girl, first of all, that's Vivica's last name. I don't want to take her last name. I was like, and also that's such a basic name. I was like, I don't want Cox. And he was like, okay. He was like, well, you like Dick. He's like, so how about you just say, instead of Dick, I know that you like more than one Dick. So like, how about we just say Dicks? And I was like, okay. And he was like, Dicks with 2 X's. And I said, that's so basic. I'm not doing 2 X's. One. And he was like, okay, so Naomi Dix. And he wrote it down on a piece of paper and he was like, how does it look to you? And I was like, I like it. We're going to go with it. He was like, and if you don't like it, you can always change it later. And I was like, yeah, I think I might. And 10 years later, I have never changed it.
Yeah.
And we are still here, Naomi Dix. And that's how it came about. I was just at a coffee shop talking to my friend and he came up with the name. And I had all of the intentions of changing the last name, but I liked it and it stuck. And here we are.
And here we are 10 years later, Naomi Dix. I mean, I like Dix too. We have that in common.
Okay. Like,
yes.
Why would I not,
So, I mean, the drag artist, Naomi Dix, there you have it.
Exactly. You take it for however you want to take it. Naomi can be from the Bible. Dix can be from something else. Who knows? It could be from Dorothea Dix Park. Like, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so whatever you want to make it. If you think it's disgusting,
Yeah.
sure. If you like it, sure. If you
Mm.
don't bother to say it. I don't
There
really
you
care.
go.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly, because it's your name.
exactly.
Yeah.
And too many people know it, so I can't
Uh-huh.
change it now.
No.
Yeah,
No. It's Naomi Dixit is for sure.
exactly. Yeah.
All right, I want to hear now. I have one more question for you about your advocacy efforts and just starting Club Era in Durham and how people can find events, come out, support you, attend events, support drag art, drag performers locally and beyond, and tying that into a conversation about community too. How can we find those spaces? Maybe you're listening to this episode in somewhere in a rural part of the states or around the world where access it may not be there for you. So when you hear about Club Era and community.
Yeah, most definitely. So, yeah, I mean, Vivica always, and I have to always go back to Vivica because she was just such a huge part of myself and
Mm-hmm.
Stormy. You know, Vivica again always taught us that drag was more than just performance based, and it was more
Yeah.
than just hair, wigs, makeup, nails, lashes, and amazing costumes. It was about a platform, and if you I always say that I did not understand what drag meant
Mm-hmm.
until I would say 3 or 4 years into me doing drag. And that was because I
Mm,
really didn't understand the capacity and the level that the voice of a drag artist really has when it comes to the queer community, but just
yeah.
when it comes to the community in general. Queer or drag artists are such a major part of the queer community and have always been a major part of the queer community, have
Mm-hmm.
always been able to find how to bring community together and
Mm-hmm.
how to be extremely outspoken when it comes to the rights of queer, gay, and trans
Yep.
people.
Yep.
We think of people like Marsha P. Johnson. We think of all of these beautiful, amazing people within the community
Yes.
who, we think of them as, these beautiful, iconic people with the hair and the makeup. But when you really think about it, they were putting themselves out there, not just as activists, but as performers to give a voice to those that didn't have one.
Yeah.
And so when you realize that as a drag artist, that you are this, again, vessel for community to whatever they're going through and whatever community is going through, whatever community is faced with, you
Mm.
can take that and you can be able to do outreach within the community and give a voice to those who don't have one. That's when
Mm-hmm.
you really understand drag because it's so
Wow.
much more than just us looking amazing and gorgeous and
Yeah.
interesting and lip syncing. And so
Yeah.
I never thought that I would be considered an activist. I never thought that I would be
Mm.
considered this community leader. Never in a million years, especially growing up Jehovah's Witness. I never thought that in a million years.
Yeah.
But when I was able to realize the power that I possessed as a drag artist, but just as a queer person in general,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, there's no stopping me. I want to do everything that I can in every way that I can to make sure that I am giving a voice to the voiceless. And if that
Mm.
means organizing a rally, if that means continuously performing in spaces that don't really want me there, if that
Mm.
means, getting on, speaking to local, national, international outlets to make
Yeah.
sure that they know who we are as queer people, that they know who we are as drag artists, then that's
Mm-hmm.
what I'll do. If I'm putting myself in the face of danger, I don't want to, but I will do that if it means to save my
Wow.
community.
Yeah.
Because when the lights went out in Moore County, if it was a shooting of any sort, I would have rather stood in the front to protect my community
Mm.
and the future generations of people,
Mm-hmm.
so that they could carry on the legacy of what the queer community is about and be
Mm-hmm.
the one that would have lost my life than to have someone
Yeah.
else's life lost.
Mm.
And that's super important to me. And I want to continue to do that. And so when it came to Club Era, I wanted being in the drag community for so long and being a part of this queer community and being this, leader within the community. I wanted to have a space where we just went back to the basics,
Yeah.
where it was just about people coming together, no matter how they looked, no matter how they dressed, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what their background was, no matter what their viewpoints were. It's left at the door.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come down those steps and when you step into Club Era, that Club Era is a part of your journey and you can be whoever the fuck you want to be. And in that moment,
Yes.
in that basement, it does not matter. It doesn't matter what happened to you earlier that day. It doesn't matter what you went through earlier that day. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter what mistakes you have made personally in your life or
Mm-hmm.
mistakes you've been a part of. What matters is that you have a space, and what matters is that in this moment,
Mm-hmm.
again, you are being seen, and there are
Mm-hmm.
other people who respect you and are seeing you as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm like having this really big realization right now and kind of going back to something you said earlier in the show where because I did have growing up, it's not like I saw a lot of drag performers or drag artists, but there was definitely this fear.
Yeah,
And I'm realizing now it wasn't because they were wearing heels and probably super tall. It wasn't the lashes and the hair and the makeup. It was
right,
because they were expressing themselves authentically and they had something to stand for.
right,
And I was lost and I didn't know who I was. And I
right,
was faced with the mirror here of someone that did and was standing in their purpose.
right,
And I'm now seeing shows are so much fun. You've got the dancers and the music and the lip syncs and the costumes and
right.
the energy. And of
Yeah,
course, like that's all a part of it too. But it is
yeah,
also there is value that extends beyond what you see and goes
right.
and is about what you feel.
Because you never know, we as drag artists, like we never know when it's someone's first time to a drag show,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, even though I was saying that it becomes repetitive, that it does become repetitive when it comes to performances, when it comes to the songs that we
Mm,
use. But when
yeah,
it comes to the spaces that we're in, that's something that we never get tired of. Because
yeah,
if you understand what it means to be a drag artist, that it's more than just having a bunch of followers on social media.
yeah.
It's more than that you get to dress up in wigs and hair like some
Mm-hmm.
drag artists think it is. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you
Mm-hmm.
know, when you understand the effect that it takes on the people that are viewing you and the effect that it takes on the people that are sharing that space with you,
Yeah,
especially when you understand that it is sometimes someone's first time at a drag show
yeah.
and that you as a drag performer, you literally hold the key to someone's future, which you don't realize until
Mm-hmm.
you realize it.
Yeah.
Because some people don't find themselves until they actually go to a drag show and
Mm-hmm.
they see a drag king or a drag queen performing
Mm-hmm.
and they see how much fun it is. And it's almost like a switch that goes off for that one person in the audience that has never been to a
Yeah.
drag show before, because it's like they forget for like 5 minutes or 7 minutes, however long that mix is, they
Mm-hmm.
forget in that moment of who they are, what they have
Yes.
taught, or who they've been taught to be, what society has told them to be. They just know that they're having a good time and they're
Yes.
in a space with people that are just like them.
Yes.
And even if it is a straight person that is at a drag show, and this is
Mm-hmm.
really important, one thing that Vivica taught us, and we have then done ourselves is, in the early days, before a lot of these girls started doing shows and drag brunch shows
Mm-hmm.
in breweries and in bars and in other spaces that weren't traditionally queer,
Mm-hmm.
the House of Cots always made sure that when it came to performing, that we tried our best to um, book shows in spaces that were not traditionally queer spaces, like a gay
Mm.
club, like a gay
Yeah.
bar, like a just a gay space in general. Why? Because we wanted to have better outreach. We wanted people who would normally go to that space to have a drink, or who would normally go to that space with their friends. We wanted those people to just stumble upon a drag show and say, what is this? And break that barrier of this misconception of what drag was. And so we then started seeing all of these straight people coming to our shows, and we started seeing straight people who had gay, family members and gay aunts and uncles and nieces and nephews and grandchildren and just children in general, sons and daughters coming to the shows or bringing their children to these shows or bringing their family members, because we were able to have better outreach to a community that, if we didn't have drag shows in these non-traditional spaces, would have never known about drag shows, or if they did, they would have kept repeatedly receiving misinformation about what drag or queerness is. And so again, it's just, you as a drag artist, you have so much power up underneath that wig you don't know about, and when you realize it, that's when, that is when you understand and know that it doesn't matter when your wig flies off, child. It just matters that you hold that power underneath that wig. And when you release that power, every single person in that audience, especially that one person that it's their first time at a drag show, you are, whether you realize it or not, saving that person's life.
Yes. And and it's working, because like at Flirties, if you have not been to a drag show, take yourself and go see one. And I'm always, I've been to a few drag shows myself now, just several mini handfuls. And even, you go to one like a Club Error at like a traditionally queer or gay venue, and inevitably, the question is asked, whose first show is this? There is always a show of and not just, here's one. It is several mini hands. People having new experiences all the time.
To be that way, and it's a beautiful thing.
All right, Naomi Dix, thank you so much for being on the show today and allowing us to learn more about you and sharing more of your story. How can people find you, follow, support you, and attend a Club Era event?
Of course, So, you can find me on social media. You can find me at Naomi Dix _HOC on Instagram, or just Naomi Dix on Facebook, or you can find me on Twitter as well, or as we call it, X. But
it's always going to be Twitter.
It's always going to be Twitter. So you can find me on Twitter as well as Naomi Dix. Remember, that's 1 X, not 2. Yes. And then you can also go to my website, which is just naomidix.com. And then as far as Club Era goes, we are open 7 days a week. And we have programming 7 days a week. If you're looking to really dance, you can come through on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. If you're looking for something a little more chill, laid back, kick back kind of vibes, Sunday through Wednesday are our kickback vibes, where you have just nice little cocktails and some, cool, chill programming. You can go to not Naomi Dix, but you can go to clubera.durham.com, or you could also visit us on our IG, which is Club Era, Bull City. Because we're in the Bull City, of course.
Yes.
Visit us on IG to follow up on any programming that we have or any upcoming events.
I'll have all of your contacts, info, links in the show notes. And please, if you're in the Triangle area, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, or within close driving distance, come hang out with us.
We are located at 305 South Dillard Street in Durham.
There you go.
In the basement of the Fruit Building.
Love it.
So just look for the Era sign.
So good. Naomi Dix, thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me.
What do you think? Naomi Dix, y'all. I am so glad Naomi was on this episode of Flirtations. And seriously, if you're ever in the Triangle area of North Carolina, come and hang out with us, but not yet. In fact, don't go anywhere, because we are going to meet another queen named Onya Nerves. Let's meet them. Welcome to this special bonus episode of Flirtations in honor and celebration of Pride Month. We have got more Pride-themed episodes for you, and today we're going to be getting into drag, y'all. Yes, we are. Up on the show is Onya Nerves. Welcome to Flirtations.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, yes. Thank you for being here. I think we have a mutual in common. I work with a mutual named Melisande. Yes. And I was like, I'm looking for some personalities to come on and do this episode of Flirtations. She hooked us up and here we are.
Yes, it's going to be a great, great little interview.
Well, let's get right into it. First, please tell first. Okay, there we go with that. First up, I want to learn a little bit more. I somehow work the word flirt into just about everything.
Proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Branding, something like that. I want to learn a little bit more about you, who you are, your story, and how you got into drag.
Yeah, so of course, my name is Onya Nerves. I am a Charlottean of almost 12 years, which I now feel like I'm borderline a normie now. Mm-hmm. But I'm originally from South Dakota, of all places. Oh. So decided to escape the tundras for a minute. But I've always been, I branded myself as a comedy charity queen. Okay. And from the very beginning, my first couple shows in Charlotte, which I think I figured out it's like 8 or 9 years ago that I started.
Wow. Okay.
Which doesn't seem like it's been that long, but my knees sure feel like it. But I've always done charity work and raise money for nonprofits in town. I try to, help where I can, if I can. Mm-hmm. Working with, I think the first time I was in drag purposely was with Stonewall Sports in Charlotte.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Helping them do their annual or biannual charity fundraiser. So okay, it's been a fun time.
Nice. Yes, a fellow North Carolina queen, Charlottean, being Charlotte, North Carolina, our largest city.
Yes.
Where in South Dakota? I've been there a couple times.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, I enjoy. I mean, I had something, a taco salad. I mean, I know that's like we can find them anywhere, but there it was something like it was a delicacy, right?
Yes. We love. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the TikToker, the Minnesota salad.
Oh, have I? I've binged them all.
I love her. Yeah. Just like Minnesota salads, South Dakota salads also are just about anything with Miracle Whip or leafy greens. You never know what you're gonna get.
It was phenomenal, I must say. It was quite delicious.
Good.
Yes, on there, I saw your Badlands. I saw your Mount Rushmore.
You were on the eastern side. So I'm from the western side, and we have a rivalry for some reason.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Yeah, it's a thing. I feel like sometimes we have a little bit of that with South Carolina.
100%. I mean, our roads are better up here, so
remarkably so. Mm-hmm. I will, yes, attest to that. I can confirm. All right, I want to hear a little bit more now about taking us back 8 or 9 years. Your first drag performance with Stonewall Sports. What was that experience like for you?
Well, it was wild, first of all, because it was back when Cathode was around, which is one of our former gay bars in Charlotte.
Okay.
But we decided to do a group number for our experience there, and that was just interesting, to say the least. We did the Spice Girls because if you're going to do a group number, you might as well do Spice Girls. So we did a mashup, and it was, I believe, I was Ginger Spice.
Okay,
and which I am not a short person by any stature, but then you put me next to all North Carolina born and raised natives, and I am a good 1.5 feet taller than everybody. And so Ginger the Giant was basically stealing the show. It was wonderful.
I mean, if you got it, you got it, you know?
I mean, I'm the second largest drag queen in captivity. There's one other queen in Charlotte who's like 6'5" out of heels. So like she's a giant.
Wow. All right. So now, was this the origination of Onya Nerves, born there in that moment? Or how did your name come to be?
No. So I've gone through a couple different iterations. My very first drag name was Katie Starr.
Oh, okay.
Very, very regal, very pageanty, very prim and proper. But she liked to get like white girl wasted quite a bit. So, you know, she transformed. I actually got Onya Nerves from the wonderful party producer Scott Weaver, who owns Clutch in Plaza Midwood. He ran a monthly show called Shiprocked at Snug Harbor. And it was one of our friends going away parties. And he was like, "What's your name?" And I was like, "It's Onya." And he said, "Onya Nerves?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" And so thus the obnoxious personality was born.
That we all know and love today and are getting to know. This is
right. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. I'm curious now if you wouldn't mind sharing how you identify in the queer community, your pronouns.
So I identify as queer. Mostly because like it's an all-encompassing label. Doing drag, like when I first started doing drag, I was very like he, him. I am only he, him, in and out of drag, and just the evolution of like just not giving a fuck is wonderful. And I've realized that over the years, like I am just as comfortable going out to the bar in a fucking sundress or a caftan as I am in like shorts and a t-shirt. So like it really it depends on my mood. But I go by all pronouns, and as long as you're not disrespectful, I don't care.
Yeah. So good. That reminds me, I need to buy a caftan for an upcoming camping trip. Any recommendations?
Oh, Amazon has some great ones. I will say.
I'm going there right after this.
So I go up to Ohio, which unfortunately, like no one should really want to go up to Ohio, but I go up there for Memorial Day weekend every year. And we do a caftan party, like brunch, and then we go and do a caftan bar crawl through a couple of different gay bars, and it's a riot. I think this year was the largest. We had like 60 some people, and none of the caftans repeated, which was impressive because we all got them from Amazon.
That is impressive. Okay, I'm gonna have a wide selection, is what I'm hearing. So good. Yeah. I might just have to get a couple.
I mean, you have to have options, obviously.
You do, honestly. So well said. I am okay. So I like to ask this question too for the queer youth that may be listening, and I'm sure they are as they're discovering themselves and who they are, starting to unravel their story, starting to ask some of those questions. I'm curious to hear now about how starting to perform in drag and be a drag performer helped, like, how did that fit into your evolution as a queer person? Maybe uncovering other parts of yourself, discovering new parts of who you are, new curiosities, strengths, weaknesses. Yeah, I'd love, because as a big RuPaul fan, it's like I love these stories of, for the first time, I really felt comfortable expressing my femininity, or I really was able to embrace my creativity. I really felt like I could be myself for the first time. I don't want to say that's your experience, but from your perspective, how did drag how did it fit into your story?
When I tell you, becoming a full-time drag queen was never even an idea or a plan or anything like that. To the point where, like, when I was in college, I used to refer to drag queens as gay clowns because I used to be terrified of them.
Yeah.
And now I'm learning. I've learned. I shouldn't say I'm learning. I've learned it was a lot of deep-seated like misogyny and
Mm.
transphobia
Mm.
that just kind of like growing up in the Midwest, you don't know about these things,
Right.
and being able to just acknowledge like, okay, yeah, this is why like I just wasn't comfortable in my own body, and so I was
Mm.
projecting a lot of these insecurities on things. And so like drag really kind of opens your eyes to like one, just the toxic masculinity that there is in the world,
Yeah.
which is crazy how deep rooted it is. But
Yeah.
it also like really makes you realize that like we're all just trying to exist, and if it
Mm-hmm.
makes you comfortable to wear a sundress to go shopping at Harris Teeter,
Mm-hmm.
do it. Like
Mm-hmm.
no one should care.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I'm curious now. I want to hear, this isn't really a concept I've explored on some of these Pride episodes before, but internalized homophobia. And it's like if you grew up in a place, and this is part of my story too, growing up in the South, I just, it was always all these things I couldn't do or I couldn't be because you don't see that it's
Mhm.
possible. And you just believe like if born in 85, grew up a 90s kid, very much a part of, so the AIDS crisis still happening. And so you internalize all of these fears and you can really start to resent and even hate yourself. I think this is an experience so many queer people have. And so I'm curious to hear about how drag, and maybe outside of drag too, helped you, if that was a part of your story, helped you start to move through some of that maybe internalized fear, internalized
Yeah,
homophobia.
it's just more so that I realized like, the fear kind of subsided more and more as I realized that like it's they're just people. There's nothing to really be afraid of.
Yeah.
Um,
And yeah.
and getting to know people one on one, like there are still some people that I don't quite understand, but I don't hate them for it as
Yeah.
much as what I used to. I just make sure that if they're in my presence, I try to ask them at least pleasantries and questions to try to understand more. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the big thing is just being more willing to ask questions without it being harmful, because
Yeah.
there's ways to ask things about people that are kind of intrusive, and then there's ways to ask them to be very just like inquisitive, be like, hey, I don't know this, can you please
Yeah.
educate me, and this is my question, rather than just like, oh, you're this, so like
Mm.
like
Mm-hmm.
it's weird how people don't understand just the common courtesy aspect of things,
Yeah.
which kind of comes to like being a drag person who is in front of crowds and in front of hundreds of
Mm.
people a week,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
they think they know you, and then
Mm.
they just all of a sudden just like think that they can just ask you things. I'm like, you
Ah.
are a fan and I love you.
Yeah.
You don't have access to that part of me yet. Like
Right. Right.
there are some
Yeah.
boundaries that personalities have to have with certain people, and like I'm more than willing to be friends with people, but
Sure.
you gotta like not be aggressive about
Yeah.
it.
And hands off the drag queens. Don't,
Yes. Oh my God. If I had a
don't
dollar
touch a
for
drag
every
queen.
unwelcome hand touch and
Yeah.
dollar in the mouth, like it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ask me first.
Boundaries. Yeah, I love that so much. And I think that can be applied to ourselves as well, just because you haven't seen something exemplified or personified. Like those are the words that are coming to mind in your own
Hmm.
life, being able to make a move, perhaps going somewhere that is going to be more inclusive, have more opportunities. If that is
Hmm.
available to you, working towards that. I always say a plan followed by a preparation and a passion leads you to your purpose. And so being able
Hmm.
to step out of your comfort zone and not necessarily move towards drag, maybe that's not a part of your story, but maybe it is. And so being open to it, asking yourself some of those questions, and a theme that's come up on some of these are on all the Pride episodes is that of acceptance too.
Hmm.
Not fighting who you are and how you're feeling, but being able to sit in that discomfort and then move towards acceptance. And then once you start to work towards that, you can be and become anything. Like your life is not defined by your identity, by your sexuality, by your chosen pronouns. You get to be and do and have the life you won ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So I want to hear a little bit more about perhaps some of the challenges that you've experienced as a drag queen. Knees aside, some
Yeah.
of the
Other than the bad knees, those are just hereditary,
yeah,
apparently.
yeah.
I'm waiting for the day that drag queens now find a doctor to do robotic knee replacement, because then the world is over. Like
Oh my God.
that is going to be the next BBL.
Untapped market, bionic knees.
Honestly, bionic knees, joints, like trust me, they're not just for old people anymore. Like
just put two disco balls in there. Like
oh Jesus, no, please. I wear enough bling the way it is. I don't need my knees to
okay.
shine.
Fair enough.
What was the question again?
Oh,
We
some
went
of
off
the
topic there.
challenges, some of the challenges you've had in your career, but
Yes.
also some of the triumphs too. I think exploring some of that duality would be fun.
So the challenges, I think, as we're all aware, just over the last like 8 years, just the amount of vitriol that people have against anything that they don't understand.
Yeah.
So like my thing, once I started doing drag and started producing my own shows, has always been drag in unusual places, and which kind of also counterpart, if there's a fee, there's a me. So if you're willing to pay for something, I'm willing to do a show wherever you want to do the show.
Okay.
But having grown up in the Midwest, well, the Great Plains, whatever they want to call it, but in South Dakota,
Yeah.
I didn't see drag until I was 21.
Okay.
So I couldn't go to the bars. There's only one gay bar in town, and it was an hour away. And they only did like one show a month. So like if you didn't hit it at the right time, you never got to experience it. So I've done shows in Gastonia, Lake Norman, Monroe, Albemarle, Mooresville. I think I said Mooresville, Monroe. Anyway, so like I tried to take drag out into the fringe towns where like there's always going to be gay people.
Yeah.
Gay people run most of your everything that you purchase. Like I don't think people understand that. So like being able to take a queer activity out into their home versus them having to drive the hour and a half to come experience it on a once in a month like trip was really special. Like I was a part of the formation of Monroe County or Union County Pride when that started. And just being able to like give people an outlet without having to travel and make it a special occasion. But with that, you get a lot of backlash. Like my shows in Albemarle, which I didn't realize Albemarle still has a very large Ku Klux Klan membership. So being doxxed by the Proud Boys was a new experience. But with that, you come like we had 3 sold out shows that day. And like that was over 200 people.
Wow,
that
amazing.
Came to this one little venue and got to experience. And from the start of that, they started doing monthly meetups. And I'm friends with most of them still on Facebook. We have our own little Facebook group that we talk. It's just, you have the good and the bad. And as long as thankfully I'm not harmed,
yes.
You just it's kind of comes with the territory of being a public figure. I just don't have the luxury of private security.
Right. Yeah. And I'm glad, I mean, you were able and everyone was able to stay safe in those events and enjoy it. And they were able to really become the seed for what it sounds like something that, I mean, it was already big, but got even bigger in the sense that it was able to continue and bringing drag and performance and art to communities that, because because you've been there in some of these more rural communities, and this extends not, from North Carolina all the way all over the whole country and all over the world, no matter where you're listening to, it really becomes a matter of access. And if you don't have the transportation, if you don't have the time away from your work, if you're perhaps living paycheck to paycheck, you can't take an extended amount of time off work to travel. You maybe don't have a car or there's so many limitations. It's not just about so many things that limit access. And so it's so important to bring these events to people and to the communities where they can just go after work or on a weekend and it's right there.
Right. Like, and it's so funny because people don't think about that as being an issue, but like, it's kind of in the same realm of like, if you don't have access to a grocery store, you're either traveling to go to groceries and you're losing more money because you're traveling to it, or you move and then you're forced into a higher income bracket because you have to, or not income bracket, but higher amount of spending because you have to be able to afford to live there while being closer to groceries. And and it's granted, queer nightlife and drag shows aren't exactly a do or die situation.
No, it's
but
not the same.
I mean, it's the access will, visibility will help save lives just as much as a grocery store. And the amount of people that I will get, people that'll tag me every other day almost on a memory photo that'll pop up. Be like, oh my God, I miss you so much. Like, it's so sweet. And getting to see like all the lives I've gotten to touch over the years is amazing. And
so cool.
You don't think about those things like until like we're talking and you get to think back and be like, oh yeah, I've had this impact on this person. And like, this, that, and whatever. Like I've had a few people that I've even from meeting them there that because I'm ordained, I've done their weddings. So like, it's kind of like a little full circle moment.
It's amazing.
It's really cute.
That is. I think this is a perfect time to ask now. I definitely wanted to ask you this, how you see, I want to learn a little bit more about your advocacy efforts and how Onya Nerves gives back. We already have heard quite a few examples, but really curious because it sounds like this is a big part of your mission and your passion as a performer. So I want to hear a little bit more about, your advocacy for the community.
Yeah. So advocacy it's always been a thing, even before I started doing drag, because I've worked with different groups forever in Charlotte and back home. Even I have a few like the Pride boards and stuff like that I work with. But a lot of it comes down to like, a lot of these boards they're older, they're aging. And when I realized that, I was like, well, who's going to take over these positions and help run these very vital organizations when they're done, when they've retired? So I started getting involved very, very early. So like I work with Hearts United for Good in Charlotte. They do kind of a catch-all of everything. They run a weekly food pantry. They do clothing drives. They help build fences for low-income families that have animals that they don't have a fenced in yard to run around in, which isn't like a superfluous, a useful thing, but it's nice to have. It takes a little bit off of the parents. They also, during the pandemic, did a lot with the homeless encampments in town where they would deliver food and set up that every day, which was wonderful. I worked with RAIN to bring HIV awareness out and around. We do like testing sites and stuff at shows. There's so many other ones, and I can't think of all of them off the top of my head. But
I mean, those are all amazing.
They're very important to just stay involved with things because you may not need it now, but you could in the future. And it's always good to like bank up some karma every once in a while because you never know when a rainy day will hit and you'll get screwed. So
it's true. It's true. Being able to give selflessly, but also knowing that it inevitably, and this goes for all of us, there will be a point in our lives where we're going to need to call on help as well. And we hope that support and those resources are there. Yeah, especially if you're maybe estranged from your nuclear family. You are in a place that's new and you're looking to build new connections and make new friends. It's like at some point in all of our lives, we're going to need help and support.
Oh, 100%.
For sure. I have one more question for you, Onya. This has been so wonderful. I want to hear now about what Pride Month means to you.
What Pride Month means to me? It means to me that I get to be visible, and I get to be more visible than any other month. which is crazy because all the same people that come out during Pride Month are the same people I see around, but they're just so much more happier and they're more freely. It gives permission to be a little bit more gay, be a bit more outspoken, and more visible. And I think that's really funny, that something so little can change a person's personality for a month and make them feel more accepted. But I just like Pride in general. Like I love being able to experience the people and be around and like just see how happy people are.
Yeah. I love that visibility and acceptance. That's beautiful. Onya, where can the Flirties find you? Where do you live on the internet? If they're local, how could they come check out a show?
Yes. So you can find me on all social media platforms at Onya Official, ONYA Official, because she's a branded queen. I don't know why I did that. We're not showing the video, so it doesn't matter.
You just did like a peace sign, yes. You look good doing it. Yes.
Right. It's second nature. Anytime I'm on a Zoom anymore, it's just what happens. And then you can find me at CLTdragbrunches.com is where you can find all of our events that we do, and find, sign up for our newsletters, all that fun stuff.
Perfect. So you can stay up to date, and I will have this all linked in the show notes. Absolutely. Onya Nurse, thank you so much for being on the show today and a part of the Flirtations fam. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Flirties, thank you so much for tuning into this episode where together we all got into drag. I think a perfect way to conclude at least the calendar end of Pride Month. Though let's be real, it really extends all year round. So be loud, be proud, be yourself. And thank you so much for listening to Flirtations as we wrap our first month in existence, in production. I mean, it's been an idea for a minute, but now it is out there. I knew it was always going to debut in Pride Month. I was so happy and so glad to bring you each of these episodes, main and bonus, throughout this month. 8 episodes out now. Oh my God. Thank you so much for listening, for streaming, for rating, reviewing, subscribing, sharing, for your feedback. It means the absolute world to me as I continue to grow my flirt dreams here at Flirt Headquarters, which is a 1-bedroom apartment with no central hair or heat. But I love it. And this is where the dream is being made in real time. All right. For more, head on over to Swell. There's Flirt Talk. There's Flirtstagram. There's FlirtTube. Ain't much there, but you can stream the podcast, the Flirtcast at least, on FlirtTube. Thank you to my collaborators, Corey and Joey. And thank you to you. All right. Now, get out there and flirt.